Welcome back to the Foxy Property Chat podcast. This is the podcast's third week back. So if you've listened to our last couple of episodes, thanks for tuning in again this week. Otherwise, if you're new here, then welcome. We're glad to have you on board. I'm Laura and I'm stepping in for Cody as host today because Cody and his wife had a baby on the weekend.
Yay!
Very exciting.
Congrats.
Baby Alexander Edison. He's all healthy and well. And
Cody will be listening. He better.
yeah, he better be listening.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, Cody.
He asked Jay for recommendations for books for his spare time.
Audiobooks.
For audiobooks to do in his spare time.
So what are you talking about spare time?
Oh, that'd be
New
funny.
baby. Anyway,
Funny jokes. Anyway, keep going.
So that's very exciting. So
Sorry, you've ruined the script already. That's
okay. Yeah, I've prepped some notes here.
Laura's nervous.
While he's off enjoying some quality family time, I'm just going to fill in here as host.
Yay.
Of course, I'm here with Phoebe and Jake. How are we today?
We're great.
As good as you can be. We've got coffee. It's later than normal for your coffee, so.
Yes, this is my first coffee today.
We've had some things to fix this morning on the go, but we won't go into those too much. We might talk about those on some other time. But yeah, just some things that I've had to chop and change on the go, which is all part of it.
Yeah. But we're here now.
We're here now. All right, so like the last couple of episodes, first up we'll chat about our main topic for today, which is around pricing.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
And then we'll move on to the Q&A segment where we'll answer everyone's questions before we finish off with a round of overrated and underrated.
Woohoo.
All right, so let's go on to the main topic. So pricing is something that sort of interests everyone, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good topic to touch on this week, especially because it ties in nicely with last week's Foxy TV episode, where you, Phoebe, spoke about us being priced too low based on client feedback.
Yeah.
Which is...
one lot of feedback.
No, it's two. It's two lots of feedback.
Yeah. Just to clarify though, we don't think we're priced too low.
No. So do you want to just expand on that a little?
Yeah. So basically I had a couple clients reach out who had ended up going with us, fantastic, and houses sold and they were really happy and they wanted to give us some feedback. And the feedback was that they did receive 3 quotes and comparatively to the 3 quotes, we came in the cheapest, which is fantastic and good. They were happy to proceed with us. However, that raised questions for them as to whether or not, because they've never used us, are we going to produce the same product? The agents also hadn't used us, so they raised the question, are they going to bring just as much stuff in as what these other stylists are quoting for? Are we comparing apples with apples here? Now, most people understandably don't understand business models are different in styling. So they don't know that we own our stock and they don't know that the other companies were hiring it and have to pass those middleman prices on. So that's on us to train and educate people, but also I guess I hadn't really considered the case scenario where somebody doesn't know that and they're presented with 3 quotes, 2 are hired, 1 is not. Of course we're going to come in cheaper, and I didn't think about those questions that it could potentially raise.
It's just an interesting one because so often, at least in the styling industry and businesses or business owners in our industry are talking about how they're getting undercut by cheaper quotes, and there's this perception, a lot of people think that people will go with the cheaper quote. This
is very relevant actually to, did you see the post on the Facebook Stylist Australia this morning? No. So there was a post popped up there about a 4-bedroom property, 4-bedroom, 2 living. I'm not sure where you're based, but basically she has seen that it was advertised for $2,800 for an 8-week hire period. Comparative.
For international people, because we do have some overseas listening.
Yes, didn't think about that, sorry.
Just for numbers are different everywhere obviously, but that is a number that's very low for a 4-bedroom.
It is. Our package and I know this is sort of similar across the board, our package is $4,500 for a 2-living 4-bedroom home. Mm-hmm. So that number, 2,799, it was quite low. However, it has raised significant discussion on, you've got some views on this.
Well, what I was saying before that's interesting about it is that so many people in our industry get unhappy when they get under-quoted or somebody else undercuts their pricing, and essentially it's we lost out because there's a cheaper option, and that definitely happens. We've lost quotes or jobs to people because there's a cheaper option. There are people out there that want to go with the cheaper. If they've got 2 side-by-side quotes, they don't really understand the difference. Why wouldn't you necessarily go for the one that's lower? But
particularly if your agents pitched us both and they put you on equal footing.
The agent recommendation matters. So that's what happens a lot of the time, and that's what makes a lot of people unhappy in our industry when they lose work. Like, it's a personal thing. You've lost work to somebody and you wanted that work, and it sucks when you lose it for being more expensive. What we're talking about here that's interesting though is, and this definitely happens less, but it does happen, where we were actually the cheaper of the three. We almost lost the work, and I'm sure we've lost it in the past that we just don't know about. But in this case, they went with us and they told us afterwards. But we almost lost it just because we were the cheapest, because there's this perception that maybe it's a budget option and therefore they're not going to be as good. Like personally, if I'm looking at 3 different quotes for something unrelated to this, usually, and I'm sure I'm not the only person, you'll go in the middle because...
Well, go use solar panels. As an example, you
don't want the cheap guy because there's this perception that maybe they're cheap for a reason.
Yeah.
But I don't want to pay a high dollar because I'm like, how much extra value do I really get for going the top end? So I'll go in the middle. Yeah. So anyway, that's a long-winded way to talk about that, but it's...
Yeah, but back to the Facebook Stylist Australia thing this morning, that there's always room for someone to be the cheapest. And I think you need somebody to be the cheaper. We've had numerous times where an agent has maybe used us for a while, being enticed by, I think, the idea that they could have something a bit cheaper so that they could sell it a bit easier to their vendors. They give it a go, and yes, the product is cheaper, but it has come with other things that are substandard. So customer service, communication, flexibility, all those things aren't necessarily on par. Those agents have come back. So get your agents back. Don't spend the time being upset about the pricing.
When you said somebody needs to be the cheapest, I think that's another important point, is there are people out there that only want the cheapest. Or want to pay the cheapest. Like, we don't want to be that person, but somebody needs to be. So that's the first point, is I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing if people are cheaper. You often see comments within the industry saying, you're devaluing our industry, or you're devaluing what we do. And it's like, for me, it's like there's always going to be somebody out there that's willing to do it, and either it's not sustainable and they won't be able to keep up with it, or you don't know what's going on there. Maybe they're running a promotion. Maybe they're new to the industry and they're just trying to find their feet, get their first few jobs so that they can build some relationships or get some sort of proof or recommendation.
That's actually a perfect example, because they said this post they booked out through to August and they haven't changed their prices, but clearly this company is not. The company that is running the promotion, they're clearly not booked out, so they're trying to get that work. Always space for them in the market. There's always space for an agent to do 1% commission. If there's space for agents to do 1% commission and there's space to do 4%, 3.3, there's space for everybody. Every industry.
Yep, I think there's always room for it, and the market is the market.
Yep.
I actually don't get on it. I mean,
wise words.
That's a Gary Vee quote there. The market will determine it, but it's true. It's like we can all sit here and say, value yourself better. We're worth more than that. But if people aren't paying that, aren't paying more, you're worth what somebody's willing to pay.
Yep.
And maybe there's some things around confidence and being able to educate and sell what you're actually doing, and that's a valid point, I guess. But I don't. I see the posts you're talking about. I've seen not that one, but I've seen 1,000 like it, and every time I just think, I don't like losing work ever for any reason, and we've definitely lost them for not being, or to cheaper quotes. But if somebody out there can make that work and they need it, like their business model allows them to do it, like people have looked at ours and said we're too cheap. But they don't, like you said, they don't understand that we own our own stock.
We've lost stuff to ones that are more expensive too.
We're quite a profitable business. Like our business model allows us to do do work at the price we do. So anyway, it's an interesting topic and it's a controversial one and people disagree, but
love to know your thoughts.
Yeah. So you touched briefly on business model and obviously range in prices between different companies.
Yep.
So what sort of price range or difference are we looking at between companies, and how do you arrive at the right price?
Maybe talk about the business model one, because that's kind of a good answer in terms of the range, but you mentioned the middleman thing, but...
Yeah, so basically, it's actually one that really affects Brisbane more so than any other states in Australia. Brisbane has a higher ratio of stylists who have a model where they do hire all of their bigger furniture. So
and generally along with that, a lot of their other pieces of the business like transport and even some of their styling man hours are contracted out as well.
That's right. So there's companies here that will not let you hire the furniture unless you use their logistics team and staff. So that's all set pricing, and that's pricing they need to cover. So they need to pass off that middleman price, and then they add on their profit margin to that. So their prices are dictated by what the hire companies are willing to hire things out at. Not just pricing, everything with that business. So they require payment to be upfront, the company they're hiring stuff from. So it makes them far more rigid in the way that they can approach any sort of payment options for their vendors. Timeframes, extension frames, time frames, all those sorts of things are all set by the people they're hiring by. So it really determines their business model. positively and negatively. There's good and bads to both. But for us, so basically, the way that you arrive to the right number, I honestly think it depends on what you want to get out of your business and all the other costs that you have in your business. So obviously, we've got warehouse costs, we've got significant staff costs, we have obviously the trucks that we're running. So all of those needs to be covered, which means that the furniture that we're hiring out needs to be priced at the right level to make sure that what's coming in covers what's going out.
But there's also the other side to that in terms of, because I think what you've just described and what a lot of people talk about is internally, what are our costs and how do we make sure we cover them? And obviously from a business point of view, that's
very
critical,
black and
has
white,
to happen.
right?
But something that doesn't often get talked about when we're talking about pricing is what value. Like it needs to be looked at from the other side. We can't just say, here's what it costs us and therefore this is what it's worth.
No.
Like we look at some of the companies in Brisbane who hire and have some up to twice the price that we do for any comparable job. And we look at it and go, but that just doesn't seem worth it to us. Like, yes, we could look at that, and that's probably not the right way to phrase it, but we look at that and go, why are you charging so much? And we understand it's because of the business model. You have to, otherwise you won't make money. But we can do the same job, if not better, in terms of everything else that we have and flexibility and payment options and those things for half the price, and we're still profitable. So when people talk about the pricing and what it costs us, I think that sometimes misses. Well, it definitely is part of the conversation, but we often don't talk about, well, what value are you adding and does your price reflect that, I guess? Yeah. Anyway.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe.
Based off what
either way, move on.
I feel like based off your previous answers, the answer to this next question is probably pretty self-explanatory. But you also said that companies feel like they're being undercut or whatever you said based off other people's prices. So do you think there should be a set industry price?
No, I don't.
That's
I've seen people suggest it. I don't think that there's any real way to do that.
We could start off with maybe some rates for our staff.
Yeah,
the way around to pay our stylists and things like that, but there's not even set anything standards. But sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, I was just saying that no, there shouldn't be any set pricing. I think the market determines the pricing. If we feel like as an industry and the businesses within the industry should be priced higher or we should be more consistent, then that's on us as businesses to show where we should be able to price more, price ourselves higher. Like if we feel like we could add 25% to our prices and we feel like there's a good business case for that from the business side, but also from a value side and everything else, well then we can do that tomorrow if we wanted to, and then it's on us to educate and show that value. We can't just decide this
and
is the
deliver
price.
it.
Yeah, exactly. We can't just decide this is the price it should be, therefore that's what it's worth. We need to be able to show that that's what it's worth. And I think every business determines their own.
I mean, everyone's got different expenses and different things they've got to consider. It's a tricky one.
Is it an investment property? Is it owner occupied? Is it a deceased estate? There's just so many different things to consider. Yeah.
And just very simply, we couldn't possibly have an industry price in Brisbane because it'll either be at the price that's too low for all those companies that hire to make money, or it'll be too high or much higher than what we charge and what we don't believe it should be. So there's just no way to do that.
And I guess you've got a range of clients as well who can pay different prices and it needs to suit them.
It's definitely an industry discussion and people should learn from each other and think about it, but there's no way
right
to
answer.
set this is what people should be charging.
Yeah. Cool. So I guess sort of just to round out this main topic segment, based off everything we've discussed and all that kind of thing, would you say that when it comes to choosing, you have to look beyond the price?
Yeah, a little bit. I've always said make sure and I say it all the time, compare apples with apples. And I guess that's my way of saying to somebody, do your research, look at your portfolio. So as far as a vendor goes, have a look at Instagram, make sure that they aren't just bringing in a couple of pieces of furniture, that it is properly fully styled. And just don't get necessarily caught up in the numbers, although there are people that are just numbers driven. And if you're going to come to the party, you have to show them numbers.
And there's a viable business model for somebody who wants to just be the cheapest and get volume work. That's entirely reasonable.
Yep.
Cool. Awesome.
Cool.
Move on to the Q&A segment now. So we've got 4 questions this week. So the first one was asked by Adore Styling. And they said, how long did it take before you started really pulling a wage from the business, and how did you know how much to start paying?
They said this is a Phoebe question. That is not a Phoebe question.
I saw this one come through Facebook and said, this one's probably for Phoebe. I'm like, don't you know I'm the numbers guy?
I don't quote numbers. If I quote numbers, you get overpaid. So I don't quote numbers.
Actually, little
Sorry,
side
I
note,
woke up
something you
Evie.
just said, we were talking about how much we invested in stock last year. And it came up on one of our videos, and it was $1.7 million in new stock. But the way that the text over the video happened with stories, the first frame stopped at 1 point, and then the next frame said 7 million.
So Russ thought we spent $7 million on furniture. Gosh. I was like, I can spend money, but not that much.
Yeah. Obviously, it's, in terms of when you can take a wage and how much and all that sort of thing, it's obviously it depends question. For us, we had the benefit of, we started the business where Phoebe, you were working. We brought in a
Charlie was 3 months old.
Yep.
I had my very first staff meeting, team agent meeting when he was 3 months old. So she also had a baby, 3 months, they had play date. It was great.
So I kept working though. So I worked full time in my previous corporate role for 12 months basically.
And
not because we had to, but at that point we were kind of testing the concept of the business and how it was going to work, and we wanted to have that. Basically, we wanted any money the business made to go 100% back into the business and reinvesting. We also, I had quite a good job, and we had our savings so that when I did, after 12 months, come into the business, at that point we still didn't have to take a wage. So to be honest, I can't remember the exact timing. I don't think we took any wage at all from the business for probably 2 years.
Oh yeah, I was going to say that.
And even then when we started to after that, it was enough for us to cover kind of living expenses and nothing more. And that was deliberate. Like we probably could have, and it would have slowed down the growth in terms of what was available to reinvest. But we had an ambition to grow quickly, and we wanted to reinvest as much as possible back into the business. So, in terms of, there's no point putting a dollar number to it because it depends on business model and what your ambitions are and all that sort of stuff. But
and it's both of us in the business versus just one.
True. So what we take out needs to cover 2 people's worth of living, and we don't really have a backup anymore, whereas we did at the start. I think the simple answer is it depends on what your ambitions are, and if your ambition is to grow and to keep investing and do that, if it is you're trying to do it as quickly as possible, the simple answer is take out as little as possible for as long as possible.
Yep.
Like
keep money in the
every
business.
dollar you can keep in the business or put back into the business helps it grow faster.
Yep.
It's pretty simple.
Cool.
Yep.
The next question, and look, I'll probably butcher how this name is pronounced. Is it Beggar Valley?
No, bigger.
There we go. Beggar Valley Property Styling.
Haven't you ever had Beggar cheese?
I always pronounced it Beggar. Is that wrong?
Yes.
Well, that's just embarrassing. Question. Can you please talk about what you do when using TVs in a vacant staged home? When to, when not to? It's such a grey area.
All right, so it's
For
grey.
us, it's not grey.
So yeah, for us it's very black and white. We use TVs in all our properties. It's grey because of the approach to aesthetics. So we are there as a stylist. I'm very firm in this belief, and I know that not everybody shares this belief. We're there as stylists to remove the need for imagination for the buyer. Stylists don't use a TV because it's not pretty. It's a big black box that isn't necessarily, it doesn't look beautiful, but it's functional. So by removing the TV and putting a piece of artwork there, whilst yes, it makes sense, it's above an entertainment unit and people should be able to piece it together, people can't. You're basically saying use your imagination. So undoing everything that we're there to do. So very, very black and white for us. We use a TV in all of our styling. If it has multiple living spaces, we will do one room as a formal living space that has a buffet and it does look pretty. It's more magazine pretty. But that's because not every home has TVs in every single space. But it has to have multiple living spaces for us to have no TV in that room. Evie's going to crack it.
I'll
So we'll see how we go.
and take her if we have to.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll see how we go. So yeah, that's our black and white rule. TVs all the time. Just our other rule in token with that, you've heard me talk about this, it can't be visible from the front door. I don't want it to be the first thing we see. If it's the first thing we see when we walk in a room, we've used furniture that isn't quite right for that space, or it's been a renovation that's happened that hasn't considered generally how furniture is going to be positioned in that house. So that's our rules.
Cool.
I'll pass the baby.
Continue. I might.
Stand up.
Let's see if there's a...
So Evie
Sorry,
loves her dad.
Oh.
She makes him feel good about himself.
All right, hopefully I pronounced this next one right. Asked by Salient Property Styling. Sorry if I've pronounced names wrong here. Question, I was wondering if you have a list of jobs the guys in logistics team do when they're not installing and doing uplifts, etc.
All right.
This might not happen often for you, but I was hoping to maximise the quieter times with my guys and thought maybe you have a go-to list, e.g. furniture repairs.
It's funny that you asked this question. So basically we have KPIs that we set for all of our staff. So basically bonus objectives. One of the bonus objectives that we've had for our removals and logistics team for the past 3 quarters has been to get said whiteboard up and running that has lists of tasks that they need to do and achieve throughout the warehouse so that their time can be maximised. We're yet to find out a way to make this work, even attaching a money incentive to it, still not working. So ideally I'd love to see it. If you figure out a way to make it work, I'd love to hear it. But at the moment it's basically us asking. And Jake's going to have input here too.
This is, for those podcasting, you won't even know, but video, I'm trying to sneak back in.
Yeah.
To add on to what you said though, we do have a list of things that get done.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got obviously boxes coming of new furniture at all times. Like for the past 6 months, there's never been a time where there isn't something to assemble or unbox. So that's a big one. Cleaning. So we have cleaning the warehouse, but also cleaning furniture, rugs, sofas if they need it. Like they mentioned there, repairs. We do have stuff that gets damaged. Painting sometimes, outdoor furniture might need a touch up. There's always something to do. And to be honest, for us, we're kind of go all the time. That most afternoons, if they're not getting ready for the next day by pulling furniture or loading trucks, they're the things that get done. But we do have somebody in the warehouse literally today who's got a list of things they need to do, and it's at the moment it's unboxing. It's getting ready for the
Lucky John.
The next days. Yeah.
Cool. And then last question from Get Stage Newcastle. Do you have a 6 or 8 week hire period?
We have an 8 week hire period. It started out as a 6. We matched basically the hire company that we were using at the very, very start, because obviously if they did 6 weeks, we should as well. We transitioned to an 8 week hire period, and it hasn't had any basically negative impact on our business, especially while the market's been so great. On average, most of the stock comes back around that 6 week mark anyway. So it just gives them peace of mind and it helps us stand out.
But this is where knowing your numbers, but also the business model comes in handy. So when we were tossing up the idea, it was a time when, it was probably just after COVID actually, everything was a bit quiet. We wanted to get back to where we were. So we saw another company in Brisbane doing 8 and we said, we can match that. We've got a warehouse full of stock and we own it. So it actually doesn't cost us anything extra other than our furniture is out longer. And we had heaps at the time. So it wasn't like we were going to be able to put it somewhere else anyway. So we went to 8.
We've had like 10 properties, I think, be out for the full 10 weeks in the last sort of couple of months.
8 weeks?
Oh yeah, 8 weeks in the last couple of months.
Yeah, but I guess my point is at the time we did it to match the competition, and we were quiet after COVID. We wanted to ramp back up.
Yep.
The reason we left it is because we looked at our numbers. We knew that on average everything was coming back between the 5 and 6 week mark. So to offer those extra 2 weeks, we weren't necessarily going to have it out longer. Some properties would, and we've seen that. Most properties come back earlier than that anyway, but it's a good way to get the business.
Yeah.
So because we own our stock, we had the flexibility, and we knew that meant we could, without it actually costing us anything, it might bring us in more work.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Not the question, but that's why.
Thanks to everyone who sent in questions. Of course, if you have one, you can send it to us via Instagram or Facebook. And yeah, sorry again for any mispronunciation.
Beggar.
I've learnt something today. Okay.
I really hope we're right. Imagine if we were wrong and we've just
paid you out and you were right.
Laura.
We met, I can't believe I can't remember, Sharon. I think her name is Sharon from Bigger Valley Home Staging. I am sorry if it's not Sharon. I'm almost certain, but you should let us know if that's how you say your name.
Please tell us Phoebe and I are right.
Please tell me I remembered your name. You had a granddaughter and everything, boy. Do you remember meeting her?
Vaguely.
Yeah,
I'm bad with
International Institute of Home Staging at the conference.
That's a couple of
she
years
had a
ago
granddaughter. Yeah, anyway.
Okay, time for overrated and underrated.
Okay.
I've got some very random things in here.
Okay, good. We got in trouble for overrating FaceTime. Jake's
really?
mother's in Spain. She uses FaceTime. We got in trouble.
Nana uses it to ring the kids, and
Yeah.
I told her it was overrated. The video calls weren't overrated, just FaceTime. Anyway, keep going.
Okay, bedheads.
Underrated. Underrated.
I think I gave this answer last week. For styling, underrated. Home use, I couldn't care less, to be honest, so overrated.
Righto.
Okay. Siri or whatever the Android equivalent is.
Alexa? Is that?
It's Google.
Google, overrated.
It's just Google.
Overrated. 'Cause
Overrated.
I don't use it.
I don't use it either. I'm sure it'd be great, but I don't. It's overrated to me.
I don't use it either.
Yeah.
I don't really know anyone that does.
I'd like to be able to use it in the car and tell it to add appointments to my calendar, but it tells me it's not a function that's not available yet.
Oh.
Every time I have something I want it to do, it's not available
That
yet.
just means we're old and we don't know how
Yeah.
to use it.
Maybe I have to ask Sam. Sammy could teach me.
Okay, mirrors for wall decor purposes.
Underrated.
Yeah.
Oh, look, we're
Easy.
about to put a mirror up in our house.
We've been about to put a mirror up for about a month. It's sitting in our study.
That's because they bought my sideboard was broken.
Or
Anyway,
about to put anyway. Keep going.
Okay, the movie Titanic.
overrated.
I think I've only ever seen it once. And
Yeah, me too, and I agree.
Although I do like Kate Winslet. So
All the girls have this in their install boxes, those magic eraser sponges.
oh, underrated.
Underrated. Yep.
Massively underrated.
Especially when you've got
Lifesaver.
3 young kids running around. I know we have 4, that's not a mistake, but she can't run around yet. But 3 kids putting marks everywhere on our walls, yeah, they're great.
Okay, afternoon naps.
Underrated. He doesn't sleep during the day.
I understand them, but I don't do it.
You understand that?
No, I understand.
I understand the need for it.
I
For my
understand the
children,
appeal, but
underrated for my
me,
children.
overrated because I don't do it. I feel like I'm missing out or wasting time.
That's fair. And lucky last,
so random.
lucky last, breakfast in bed.
Overrated.
Overrated. You get crumbs and
Yeah. And just like, I don't know.
It's
just
not comfortable.
like how do you sit? Like
Yeah.
cross-legged or?
Yeah, breakfast
Oh yeah,
is
because
underrated.
I like a nice brekkie,
Yeah.
like cooked brekkie.
Yeah,
good,
but
in
in
bed.
bed.
the bed parts, yeah,
You can bring me a
overrated.
coffee. You can bring me a coffee. Cool.
Cool. Well, that's it for this podcast. Thanks everyone for listening in, or if you're streaming on YouTube, thanks for watching. We hope you found it informative and interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks Phoebe and Jake for your time and for
Thank you for
all your-
filling in.
That's okay. Hopefully I've done.
You've done great.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll ask Cody if you're allowed to do it again next week.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you have any questions, like I already said, feel free to reach out to us. Otherwise, we'll catch you in next week's episode.
Woo. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.